Many think of The Wizard of Oz when asked about the first in-color movie. Though the film may not have been the first one to utilize color, it sticks out to us because of how well it does it. Going from the dull sepia tones of Kansas to the colorful world of Oz perfectly encapsulates the real-life transition to a new world of possibilities in film and video from black and white to Technicolor. Before the widespread use of colored film, filmmakers didn't really need to take color into account when filming. For example, sometimes in black and white films, chocolate syrup was used as fake blood because it showed up better on screen as opposed to anything red. But after color film came into popularity, they needed to put more careful consideration into the colors they used and how they contributed to the storytelling and aesthetics of a film. And thus, color became an integral part of mise-en-scène.
Hur gammal är du?
12. Ungefär. Du då?
12 år, 8 månader och 9 dagar. Vadå 12 ungefär?
A film I believe utilizes color well in both a narrative and aesthetic sense is Let the Right One In, a 2008 film directed by Thomas Alfredson. It centers around a lonely boy and a mysterious child who moves in next door, who happens to be a vampire. The main color utilized in this film is actually a pretty bold one: white. This might seem boring and bland, but the fact that it is so dull is what makes it such a dangerous choice. It's an empty canvas. Most of the shots within the film contain a very large amount of white negative space. This is quite easy to achieve when you consider the setting, midwinter Sweden, but the white space is not coincidental, as we see it in spades even when we're not outside. Even in a children's classroom, usually filled with colors in the real world, has these blank cinder block walls. The locker rooms, pools, and weight rooms all mostly have white tile. The whole setting is white and gray, dull, devoid of life. The director effectively utilizes this white space in the wide shots of the film. The figures are tiny on screen in a white void. Lonely, desolate. This, along with the shallow depth of fields frequently utilized in this film, perfectly reflects the emotion of the main protagonist. Friendless, isolated, depressed, and utterly alone. There are a few brighter colors utilized, however. One is pale blue, most often worn by the protagonist Oscar. Even though it's more pigmented than the rest of the world, it's still not a vibrant color. It's pastel, which we usually associate with things that are soft and powerless, for example, babies and young children. This fits Oscar, who is a young boy that is viciously bullied at school, who doesn't have any friends, who has a specific air of innocence about him that we instinctively want to protect. The other color, and by far the most vibrant, is red. Many shots feature a smaller red object on a wide white background. It's extremely striking, drawing our eyes directly to it. There are multiple examples for why red was chosen. For one, it's the color of blood, which is befitting of a vampire movie. Red is also a color that we tend to have a physiological reaction to. Think about why stop signs are red in the real world, because it's eye-catching and you have an immediate reaction to it, especially on the stark white background. Red can have a variety of meanings, but in this film it is most associated with danger. Red is the color worn by antagonistic characters. Håkon, the man taking care of Eli with questionable motives, is introduced in a red sweater. Oscar's bully is always shown wearing red and black. The bully's older brother, who also ends up bullying Oscar, wears this color as well. Eli's victims tend to wear this color. Their first, an older gentleman, wears a black and red flannel on the night he's killed. Their next, a blonde woman, wears a red coat when she gets attacked. She survives, but in later scenes you see her furniture and walls are red, a sign of her inescapable fate. Sometimes, however, the color just appears on a person or an object as a sign of danger to come. Notice the flashes of red on screen here when Oscar is being pursued by his bully. Notice this bright red sled which Håkon uses to hide a dead body, one that will be later found by a group of school children, who are also wearing red. A nurse puts on a red sweater over her shoulders. The next scene shows Eli killing Håkon by throwing him out his window. There are many examples of this throughout the film, making the viewer subconsciously anticipate something bad whenever we see the color red on screen. Towards the end of the film, Eli themselves wears this color, and it's directly after a very pivotal scene, when they confess the truth of their vampirism to Oscar. Before this point, they had only worn neutrals and pastels like a majority of the cast. We now associate them with this color that has been so heavily associated with violence, antagonism, and danger throughout the rest of the film. Which makes sense as they are now revealing that they are the killer themselves. It's this deliberate thought about when we see red, who we see wearing red, and the context in which we see it that makes this negative association form. It's a nonverbal cue of danger demonstrated throughout the film. Beyond its storytelling, it's also appealing visually. The entire film uses this limited color palette, which makes it very stylistic and cohesive. But there's more to it than just the looks. It provides a narrative significance and appeals to the emotion of the viewer. It really goes to show that every part of a film is significant and deliberate in some way, even down to what colors the filmmaker chooses to use.